Hi everybody, welcome to the Edges Facebook's page's #1 show at this particular time. 3 to 5 things we didn't have time to talk about today. I am your host, Fred Kennedy, and I would like to thank this week's sponsors, Corey's Clothiers, at 569 Danforth Avenue in the heart of Greektown. I was at a wedding on the weekend, and I just want to say that I looked really dapper in my wonderful 3-piece suit from Corey's Clothiers. It's a Copley. They're on the upstairs. It was very comfortable, and it looked good. Here's the thing. You know how I know it was good? Because my wife said all the other women she was talking to at the wedding kept coming up and saying, "Your husband's suit is so nice." Why didn't any of them say that to me? Why do they got to go through my wife? I can't take all of my compliments through proxy. It leads me to think that my wife was making it all up, and it actually looked ugly. What?
I saw your suit on Instagram. It was very nice.
Thank you, Madison. She saw my suit on Instagram, and it looked very nice. I have to try hard, because my wife is clearly the better looking one out of the two of us. So I got to put in the effort. She doesn't even have to try. It's like, look at me, I just woke up, and I didn't shower, and I look better than you. That's every day of my life. Every day is a defeat for me. But not when I shop at Corey's Clothiers, 569 Danforth Avenue. Up first, Game of Thrones. No, we're not doing spoilers. I'm not going to talk about last night's amazing episode where for some reason everything worked out and everybody was happy and no one died. I won't talk about that. But I will talk. That didn't happen. Or did it? I am going to talk about a little rumor that's going around that Game of Thrones is getting an open world RPG video game from Bethesda. Yes, Bethesda. The same people that gave us all the Elder Scrolls games and Fallout. Now, this is what happened. Somebody was doing a little search online, I think it was at GameSpot, and they found a notice for a Game of Thrones video game registered to Bethesda. That's the video game company that made those video games. And what's interesting about this is it's an entirely possible thing because the last big video game Bethesda released was Fallout 4. And they've been re-releasing Skyrim. Of course, they're also still running Elder Scrolls Online, but that's not a big release. There's been no big game for them since Fallout 4, which means the possibility of them working on a massive open-world Game of Thrones type game is entirely possible. Game of Thrones has already been licensed to Telltale Games. They did some games for them. But an open-world Bethesda Game of Thrones game where you could go, say, join the Black Watch, where you could go join the Kingsguard, where you could go join the Brotherhood of No Banners, or whatever the term is. Dondarrions, guys! The Brotherhood Without Banners, or whatever the hell they called themselves. There's so many cool things they could do! And they could put, like, amazing downloadable content, like where you could go here, you could go there. Either way, it would just be amazing. All right? I just want to get a game that I can literally just spend months of my life locked away in a basement ignoring reality. I go home, people are like, "Why do you play video games?" Because guess what? In real life, I'm not going to save any city from dragons. I'm not going to rule a guild of wizards in real life. You know what's going to happen? I'm going to sit next to somebody on the GO train, and this happened 2 weeks ago. I sat down on the GO train, and a woman sat down in front of me with the foulest BO ever. And like full body BO, like not just armpit BO, like all body BO. You know what I'm talking about. So she sits down in front of me and just like a wall of BO. Capable of keeping the White Walkers from crossing in from the north. Okay? That's how strong it was. And I'm sitting there like this on my laptop being like, getting fumigated. And then another woman comes and sits down next to her. And I like make eye contact with her and be like, "Buddy, what are you doing?" She goes, then looks right at me and got up and walked away. And I was like, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It's not me that stinks." I got blamed for someone else's body odor. I was not happy about it. Moving on. Okay. This is something that I found rather interesting today. I was reading about women are apparently quite concerned with your credit score when they're looking to enter a long-term relationship with you. Now, I'm not going to lie. Initially, I was like, "Oh, really? Credit score? Is that what we're talking about here? Is that where we are as a society?" And then I thought to myself, you know what? That's actually a very smart choice for a long-term relationship. I'm going to tell you something right now. If your credit score is bad, it's because you made a mistake. It's very rare that like somebody's got a bad credit score because they got hooped over. Here's what ends up happening. You go into a store and you get in-store financing because you can't get a credit card. In-store financing is almost always a guaranteed recipe for disaster. I have only one ding on my credit score here. I can already hear somebody typing in a check your privilege kind of email. But I've got one ding, and you know what it was? It was when I was 16 years old, and I was at International Stereo, and I tried to get in-store financing for a stereo in my house. And I couldn't, like, not my house, my room in my parents' house. And I failed the credit application because I didn't even have a job. And I was like, oh, this is a good idea. And the guy at the store was like, why don't you try for in-store credit rating? Yeah. And I'm like, why would I do that? Because you can build your credit score. To this day, whenever I take a look at my credit score, the only blip on it is from when I was 16 years old. The 90s, man. That's what happens with your credit score. It follows you around for the rest of your life. You got to be really careful with it. And this is something that I always find drives me crazy. If you're applying for credit someplace and they don't give it to you, it's not like they're insulting you. They're doing you a favor because you can't afford to pay it. So don't do it. Remember the big stock market crash in 2008? You know why that happened? Because all kinds of people bought houses they couldn't afford. Well, how much money do you make? There was a great scene in Arrested Development when they're like, oh, you're making $35,000 a year? Well, we'll approve you for $800,000. No! Don't borrow things. My dad gave me great credit advice when I was a kid. He said the only two things that you ever buy on credit are a car and a house. That's it. Everything else, if you can't afford it, don't buy it. I did a little rant there. It's just I'm upset because schools don't teach you about your credit rating. They don't do that when they really should. Because if you screw your credit up when you're like 20, when you're 35 and you're trying to get a house, you're not going to get approved for anything. Moving on. Okay. Oh, Netflix. This is the thing I love about this whole like legalized marijuana thing. Hold on. Cold coffee. Netflix has teamed up with a marijuana production facility to create marijuana strains for some of their TV shows. They got Baka Bile, Pussy Riot, and Moon 13. And each weed strain is designed to go with a specific TV show. Like some shows you just want to laugh a lot. Oh, they got a weed strain for that. Some shows they want you to be a little bit intense because it's a little bit scary. They got a weed for that. But I'm going to say something. I've been smoking weed like for a long time. For a long time. I've been smoking marijuana, okay? And here's the thing. The THC levels in marijuana these days are insanely high, all right? Now, when I started smoking weed back in the 90s, when was the first time that I smoked weed? It was Greg Glottish in his car in grade 10. Lunch hour in grade 10 with Greg Glottish in the school parking lot. We smoked weed, then we went into Miss Struby's class? Yep, it was Miss Struby's English class, and I was confused. So we went into her class, and the thing was, back then we were smoking like homegrown. You know it was homegrown because there's almost always seeds in it because you're in high school smoking terrible weed. And now the THC levels in the weed that people get today versus what they had back then is insanely high. And that's a problem because THC to a developing mind can actually cause legitimate problems. See, in marijuana, there's really two active chemicals. There's THC and there's also CBD, cannabidiol. Now, THC is a psychotic agent in marijuana. That's what gets you high, okay? That's what makes you see the music, man. CBD is the mellowing agent that brings you down and chills you right out. People always talk about mellow, man. That's because of the CBD in there. And now there's really not a lot of CBD in marijuana. But with all the legalization, you can actually buy like perfectly made weed for whatever it is that you want. Like when I'm buying weed, I always make sure that the CBD count is really high in what I get. I also don't smoke sativas. I smoke indicas because once again, that's a bit more mellow of a strain of weed. So I'm smoking like nowadays, I'm getting this like high CBD weed. And I'm saying this because there's a lot of guys in their early 40s, late 30s that have this complaint. You notice like weed doesn't get you like high anymore. It just gets you paranoid. That's because you're smoking way too much THC, man. If you get stuff with lots of CBD, you'll get stoned and you'll be like, bud, just having a good time. Like, that's what you should look for. So I'm just giving you the breakdown. Try and find stuff that's got a really high CBD content, and you can just chill out when you're smoking your weed again. And then you can do whatever. Like last night, after the season finale for Game of Thrones, I needed some CBD to calm me down, man, because there was some pretty crazy stuff going on in that episode. All right, look at this. I was reading about this town, Stanford, in the United States. People are terrified to go outside because they're being harassed by wild turkeys. I can identify with this. And the reason I can is because every time I go outside at night to like smoke a high CBD content marijuana cigarette, I'm harassed by raccoons. And this is the weird thing is like, I'm letting myself be bullied by raccoons because I don't know what my rights against raccoons are. I know that if I I'm driving a car and I hit a raccoon, it's an accident. But what if I'm outside smoking a marijuana cigarette and 3 raccoons of ill repute come up and start hassling me, man? They're like pushing me around. They're going to bite me and give me rabies. And I'm not even we are so politically correct in this society that you can't even fight a raccoon to defend your family. Like there's that story of the guy who killed a raccoon with a shovel and he got charged with animal cruelty. We don't know what was going on with that raccoon, man. What if that raccoon was on the verge of attacking one of his kids? What then? Oh, we don't care. We care about the raccoons more. No! 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 I pay a lot of money for my house. I shouldn't have to live in fear of rodents with parasites roaming around my property. If I want to go outside and pretend I'm doing useful things so my wife will leave me alone, I shouldn't have to worry about being harassed by raccoons, man. This is another one of my arguments why we should all be given a basic period of military service in this country. When you turn 18, you should have to do a year-long, 2-year-long bid in the military. I'm not saying you have to go fight in a war, man. I'm not saying that. But odds are, if I had military training, I would know how to handle that raccoon situation. I'd dig a trench, reenact the Battle of the Somme. I'd be in shape. My caveman ancestors didn't take crap from raccoons, but I do. Because I'm afraid about the last thing. My whole broadcasting career is gone if I fight a raccoon on my property, unless the raccoon is racist, and then everybody will be okay with it. How do I know the raccoon isn't racist? How do I know? Well, what if the headline was local broadcaster assaults racist raccoon harassing people? That's a headline that'll make me a hero rather than a villain. Speaking of villains, oh God. I'm choking on bile. Okay. I want to start this by saying that in 10 elections out of 10, I would vote for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump, okay? 10 elections out of 10, I would. Absolutely. I'd vote for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. That's my disclaimer for what I'm about to say. Hillary Clinton, by the way, is going to be stopping by Toronto at the end of September to promote her new book called What Happened. Let me make it so you don't have to read the book, What Happened. What happened is the Democratic Party chose a horrible candidate that was as exciting as day-old warm mayonnaise. That's why they lost the election. Hillary Clinton was a terrible choice. Terrible. You're talking about how... Oh my God, when I saw all those people being like, oh, she's only the most qualified presidential candidate of this last century. Why? Because she flip-flopped on a million friggin' issues for her entire career and then lied to people's faces about it? You want to talk about progressive? She had a $25 million campaign donation from one of the princes of Saudi Arabia to ensure that they continued buying oil from Saudi Arabia. That's wild. That's crazy. You know what they do to anybody who's not a heterosexual human being in Saudi Arabia? They literally throw them off of buildings. They have public beheadings. If you're a woman driving a car, they'll cut your hands off. She's taking money from them and you're going to call her progressive? That's not including the $100 million in donations she got from Qatar, Kuwait, Oman, Brunei, and Algeria, all of which have incredibly horrible human rights records. They execute journalists for trying to expose things over there. Oh, but she was going to clean up Wall Street. That's wild. How do you expect her to clean up Wall Street when she took $40 million in campaign donations from the banks of Wall Street? Yeah, well, you gave me $20 million, but now I'm going to put all kinds of restrictions on you. Yeah, that's really gonna happen. How friggin' naive do you have to be? She has a career of flip-flopping. She will say whatever she needed to say because it was popular at the time. Remember, do you guys remember this? When she went on Oprah in like 2000 and talked about how marriage was a holy bond only between a man and a woman and refused to advocate it being legal for gay people to get married? Do you remember when she did the same thing in 2009? Do you know it wasn't until 2013 that she spoke publicly about gay marriage? Did you know that? Drove me absolutely crazy. Everybody going on like she was the big progressive candidate. She was not. Yes, Bernie Sanders, also Elizabeth Warren, they were both progressive candidates. But Elizabeth Warren wasn't like this big popular person whose husband was formerly the president of the United States. She didn't have a massive charity behind her that actually is used to funnel money into various investment groups for her. That's what Hillary Clinton had. That's why she got the ticket. I'm just going to give you a little disclaimer. It drives me crazy, like absolutely crazy, when you say that Bernie Sanders was a better choice, because he was. He has the best attendance record out of anybody in Congress in the United States or Senate or whatever it is. I'm screwing up my words because I'm getting all fired up. And then they say that because Hillary Clinton was a woman, she was a better candidate. Elizabeth Warren was also a woman, and she was a much better candidate. She just didn't have the money. And for the record, do you know when Bernie Sanders spoke out publicly saying gay marriage was an absolute human right because it was a civil rights issue? Was it in, I don't know, early 2000s? Nope, wasn't in the 90s. It was 1983 when he passed a law in his city in Vermont declaring that gay rights were a civil rights issue and advocated a gay pride parade that he attended every single year. How many gay pride parades did you see Hillary Clinton at? There you go. That's what happened. You were a terrible choice. But this is the best part, is she gets to go around saying like, well, I was a better candidate than Donald Trump. Dude, that's like me saying I'm better at the internet than someone born in 900 BC. Obviously, I'm better at the internet. Dude, a ham sandwich would be a better president than Donald Trump. That's not saying anything. That's terrible. It's like racing a slinky down the stairs and saying you're the best at racing. I could give you a million different stupid analogies. What happened? What happened? The Democrats made a horrible choice. Ugh. That's 5 things we didn't have time to talk about today. I'm going to have my coffee and continue to be mad about the whole Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren situation.